Julie Miller and her boyfriend Nick Larson gazed at each other lovingly while another couple, Trevor and Amanda, sat beside them, reminiscing about their high school days. They were at a campsite to celebrate Julie's 24th birthday. Amanda excitedly urged Julie to tell Nick something, and Julie took a photo of herself and Nick after cutting the birthday cake with the other couple. Nick then told Julie to close her eyes and took her hand, giving her a beautiful necklace. Julie was thrilled and wanted to tell Nick something, but he interrupted her. Julie finally shared that she wanted to pursue a career in photography, and Nick agreed, suggesting that once he succeeded, he would open a gallery for her work. Suddenly, Nick got a work call while they were happily enjoying their time together. He convinced Julie that they would return every year, adding that he had to work hard because he was competing for a promotion against his rival Dave Bristol. On their way back, Julie wanted to take a picture of Trevor and Amanda kissing, but just as she unbuckled her seatbelt, the car's tire blew out, causing Nick to lose control. A truck then crashed into them, leading to a serious accident. Nick Larson, severely injured and unconscious in the hospital, experienced flashbacks from his past and had attacks, while his mother, Catherine Larson, stayed by his side. She informed the nurse that Nick had been having nightmares since childhood. When Nick woke up, he was devastated to learn that the others hadn't survived the accident. At home, recovering, Nick grieved as he looked at Julie's camera, reminiscing about their birthday memories. He also mourned while holding the necklace he had given her. As Nick received a message from his mom advising him to take care of himself, he saw a picture of himself and Julie taken during her birthday. To his shock, the images within the picture began to move, and as the room shattered around him, Nick felt a sharp pain in his mind and began to bleed from his nose. The picture fell to the ground and broke. 1 year later, at work, Nick was insulted by his supervisor, Bristol, who was his former boss and had received a promotion. Bristol asked Nick to urgently present a sales pitch for a next-gen software project and insulted him for his messy desk. In the meeting, when Nick presented the pitch to the investors, he saw an old photo that included Trevor. And as the room started shattering again, Nick felt the same pain and nosebleed, ruining his presentation. Ron Callahan, Nick's boss, told him that one mistake could ruin the project and sent him on a 1-week suspension. At home, Nick connected Julie's camera to his laptop and watched the photos from her birthday, including the one of him driving the car before the accident. As he gazed at the image, everything began to shatter once more, and Nick traveled back in time. Nick found himself driving with Julie, Trevor, and Amanda in the car again. As they approached the point before the accident, he realized he knew what was about to happen. When Julie unbuckled her seatbelt to take a picture, Nick yelled at her to buckle up. The tire blew out, but this time, Nick managed to avoid the truck and lost consciousness. When he woke up, he was on the floor in a new shirt, his nose bleeding again. At home, Nick was overjoyed to see Julie alive, and he found out they were living together, happily. He kissed her and told her about his nightmare, and Julie reassured him. At a restaurant, Nick shared with Julie that he had spent a year thinking she was dead, and she comforted him, saying it was just a nightmare. Trevor and Amanda arrived for Julie's birthday, and Nick warmly hugged them. He then told Trevor that they would have a bachelor's party as he was going to propose to Julie, with Trevor as the best man. Nick and Julie spent the night together, and the next day at work, Nick researched his symptoms and found an article about a patient named Jason Trayborn who had a similar condition, schizophrenia. Nick and Trevor called for a staff meeting, which Bristol held, and there, Nick found out that Trevor had been fired. Offended by Bristol's behavior, Nick confronted him, saying that he had used Trevor for the failed sales pitch. Bristol mocked Nick, claiming that he never made mistakes like Trevor, and fired him too. Trevor told Nick that he didn't need to stand up for him, as Nick had worked hard for the job. Nick, however, told him that life was short and he had strange symptoms. Nick then shared with Julie that Bristol was finding excuses to fire him, but he would find a better job soon. Julie became angry as she had a minimum wage job and now had to work even harder since Nick was unemployed. Nick reassured her that the only thing that mattered was that they were fine and living together. When Nick saw a picture of their friends, including Dave Bristol, on the fridge, he called him a jerk and traveled back to the party where he confronted Bristol. Nick spilled wine on him and later broke into Bristol's office to steal files that proved he had plagiarized his way into the promotion. As Nick experienced another nosebleed, he saw another timeline where he was now the vice president, with Bristol as a senior sales representative. In this timeline, Nick learned that Trevor was not part of his life anymore, but he still had his job and was successful. Nick's boss, Ron, told him that he needed to meet a potential client, and Nick called Julie, discovering that she now owned a local photography studio. He was overjoyed and left her a message to meet after his meeting. Nick gave a successful sales pitch to the client, and Ron and the client praised him. However, in the bathroom, Ron's daughter, Grace Callahan, followed Nick, and they had a brief affair. Grace used Nick's handheld device to take a picture of them kissing. When Nick returned home, Trevor showed up, injured. and told Nick that his deal with an investor named Malcolm was in trouble. Nick reassured him that he would fix things, but was shocked to learn that Trevor no longer had contact with Julie after Nick dumped her. Nick asked Ron about the investment deal, and Ron told him that despite Nick's efforts, he had still blown the deal, leading to the company's financial collapse. Nick tried to reach Julie and wished her a happy birthday, but he received no response. His mother called to check on him, and Nick soon found himself at a club trying to resolve the issues with Malcolm. There, he saw Julie working and tried to approach her, only to find out she was with someone else now. Julie told him that she had found out about Grace, and Nick tried to convince Malcolm to invest in the project, but Malcolm told him there had been no progress. Nick paid a little money back to Malcolm, but it wasn't enough, and Malcolm had Trevor killed. Nick rushed out, but he was shot at. Julie was caught in the crossfire and died in the locked room. Nick tried to use the picture of him with Grace to travel back, but it failed, and he was knocked unconscious by Malcolm's men. When Nick woke up in an unknown bed, drugged, he fought with Malcolm's gay business partner and escaped, traveling back to tell his mother everything. She revealed that Nick's father had suffered from the same symptoms and had committed suicide. She urged Nick to see a doctor as he could no longer control everything. Amanda, concerned about Trevor, gave Nick the pictures from Julie's 24th birthday. Nick traveled back to the beginning, celebrating Julie's 24th birthday with Trevor and Amanda. He took Julie aside and urged her to pursue her photography career in New York, apologizing for holding her back. Julie revealed she was pregnant, which shocked Nick. As Julie drove off, Nick chased after her, stealing a Jeep. When Julie veered off the road, Nick, remembering the accident, deliberately drove off a cliff, intending to die. 1 year later in New York, Julie lives with their son, Nick Jr. One day, Nick Jr. discovers a photo of his parents and their friends from Julie's 24th birthday and feels the same shattered emotions by seeing it.